right, welcome back, guys. So this is going to be part 2 of the custom RO builds. Last video we put the chassis together to this point, pin the rear axle, guide pin, front end install, and electrical. Now, as you can see, I have our custom armatures out. Got end bells, spacers, pinions, and the bronze bushing. So what I like to do on these is I install the bronze bushing, and then I put this Teflon spacer about 50 thousandths on so that this won't fall off. So these cars work really well with the flange bronze bushing on them, and it's just not quite at a point where I feel like it's worth it to put ball bearings in it, and to try to keep the cost down. We do this because it's not only the ball bearing costs that you have to deal with, it's fitting them to the shaft specifically, doing the end bells specifically for them. So there's quite a bit more work going to the ball bearings, and there's really, other than an all-out race build, there's not really a point to doing that, in my opinion. So we like these bronze bushings. These are super high precision bushings. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. So once I put that on, I like to leave it on the pinion side so that I can put oil on the shaft up against the shoulder, and then I will back this up, and once it's oiled, it'll pretty much stay there. So at this point, I will go through, oil those. That just makes sure that that part of the armature gets oil on the bushing. I'm going to also oil them again once I get it installed. But these arms are a 35 gauge custom, which means that they have been special wound, ground, epoxied, balanced, trued. They also have a high temp phenolic spacer on the top. We're going to also add the plastic spacer on top of that. So we'll go ahead and get 5 of those here. And then the next step is going to be putting the timing brackets on kind of a little, we'll call it a tech tip, is that whenever you're putting spacers on the comm side, if they are fitted, meaning that if they're a slip fit and they're not like super loose, I like to take a bushing and I push it on there and make sure that they have completely seated flat, because you do not want that to be out of whack. Also, all of this stuff is designed so that there's not necessarily a bunch of additional spacers or spacing necessary. I know a lot of guys kind of go crazy on the spacing. These ones, for the chassis that we're using, the magnet package, the flange rear bushing, all that stuff, and the bushing that is in the end bell, works out to where with the phenolic and a 5 thou on top of that, pretty much all that you need. So now we got our pre-prepped end bells. We're gonna load these things. Okay, so that guy is loaded. These cars use a Pro 10 high torque magnet, so that's about the minimum magnet that I would use on a 35 gauge arm like this. You could definitely use the high downforce ones as well. I typically like to sand the chassis when I run those, but we're gonna go ahead and pop this one in. Make sure that everything positioned right. Snap it in place. I like to give all sides of the chassis a pinch, And at this point, we're going to put some oil on this guy. This time I'll oil the back of the bushing. You don't want to go super heavy there because we're going to be Loctiting the pinions on in a minute. And you don't want any oil to be anywhere near the Loctite. If you're worried about it, I would just say wait until after you Loctite that on there to oil it. But I'm going to hit it on the run stand over here real quick. We'll see how she sounds. All right, so it sounds really good. That was 5 volts. Probably let them break in after I get them all together. We'll let them break in a little bit longer on there, but I have pre-seated the brushes on all of the end bells, so they are probably 95% ready to go. So that's just huge time saver, and it doesn't, I'm not a big fan of running the car on the run stand for a really long time with the brushes not broken in. So I've used scrap arms before, scored the commutator, and use a Dremel or a drill to spin the armature in the end bell so that it radiuses the brushes. But we had some special tools made for breaking those in, and unfortunately they are super expensive, and it's not something that we have an abundant supply of to be able to offer to everybody. So that's why I recommend using an old junked arm, and it works fine, especially if you're only doing a couple of cars. If you're doing hundreds of cars like we do, you don't want to be doing that every single time. So kind of just jamming through this now, but good thing about these setups is that everything is very calculated. It's all precision made to work with itself or with other components that we also manufacture. So there's no wondering if this arm's the right length or that or the other. Like, it's all very, very straightforward, and it's almost so straightforward that a lot of the old school guys, they feel like they got to mess around with stuff. They got to tweak this, bend that, do this, do that, and honestly, all they're doing is making things worse. So if you want really good results, just put it together with high quality parts, drive it, and make sure that the normal function of it is working correctly, and you don't really have anything to worry about. So, not a big fan of the tribal knowledge type, like, put a little bit here and bend this there and do that here. Like, we did that on toy cars, like toy brand stuff that was mass produced. You don't do that on high performance race cars. You design it correctly, and when you design it right, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Okay, so that's number 4. So the next thing that I'm going to do on these guys is I like to install the traction mags, put the clip on it. I don't like to run them a ton without the magnet clip on them because it opens the back of the magnets up the way that it's supposed to keep the air gap consistent. So for those of you guys out there that are running your cars, breaking them in on the run stand without the magnet clip on them, I don't recommend doing that. I also don't recommend doing that running them on the run stand to break in without the traction magnets in there, because that can change. The traction magnet polarity can change where the car or where the armature rides in the motor magnets. So I recommend you do all of that stuff the way that the car is going to be run. So install your traction mags, put your magnet clip on, and then break it in. So okay, so those guys, got my oiler here. Those guys are all ready to go. I do just run them real quick on the run stand though, just to make sure that there's no problems. There almost never is on these things. But if for some reason an in-bell was bad or something like that, you know, which I know that's ironic to just say that we use all high quality stuff, which we do, but there is potential for bunny ears to get broken, internal parts to be broken. You know, the armature could have got a short, some kind of silly thing when it was getting balanced. So I do make sure that they are all alive. And then we go ahead and put the traction mags in. So I'm gonna go grab those real quick. All right, so these cars, the Pro 25 tractions, which is what makes them RO car. Early 2000s into probably 2012 maybe. That's kind of the tail end of it. We would have called this a level 25 car. These magnets, we call them Pro 25, which it's basically a cobalt version of a level 25. So not quite as strong, it's not the same material as the original level 25s, but it is every bit as strong, and it's obviously not impossible to get. So back in those days, when that was kind of like the peak of the magnet wars, and a lot of the level 25 material back then was from it was sample material, and a lot of guys that made those magnets, they would order the sample material and they would only make as many as they could out of the sample because they didn't want to buy an entire run of that material. At least that's what I heard. I don't know how true that is, but that guy ready to go. I set this up in high downforce mode. So high downforce means that the rail face of the traction magnet attracted to the outside of the motor magnet. That is high downforce orientation. So low downforce would have been the opposite. So that car basically ready to go on the run stand, which is where we're going to put it. Actually shut that off because it's probably not going to be super great for the video. But something too that I do, I stack the cars. If you stack them this way, that means that they're all in high downforce. If they're not in high downforce, they will not piggyback like this. So that's kind of another telling sign that the magnets are in correctly. You might wonder, you know, what's it mean if they do if one ends up in low downforce? It's not the end of the world. It's just not going to have as much traction magnet. It will also have more power. So when you run the magnets in low downforce orientation, it actually changes the effect that the motor mags have, and it will usually increase the amount of power that the car has. So very rarely do you run low downforce, but I almost always do when I'm running like a Neo car or something with super strong magnets. But these ones, level 25, they're fine to run in high downforce. So we got a couple more to go here. So too, these things, if you pull them apart, You definitely don't want to have them just sitting out on your desk because they are strong enough to jump across the table, and if they slap against themselves or against something else that's metal, they probably are going to break, and then you're going to be messaging Viper saying that you opened the package up and that the magnets were broken and blah 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 blah. I've heard it 100 times, and the only times that I've actually seen it happen is on the bench. So if you tell me that, I ain't gonna buy it. Sorry. But one thing that's cool, all of our magnets, all of our high performance magnets anyways, they come with a cool parts tube that you can obviously reuse for other magnets or little parts and whatnot. But right now we got number 5, getting the magnet clip. Okay, so magnet clip here. Let's see if I can show you this one. So you see how it's at an angle like that? I push it over. Now it's fully engaged on this side, and now I'm gonna push down and that way, pop it in there. I'm not stretching it out like this and dropping it down. It's over, down, over. That's what it takes. So there we have it. Next step will be Loctiting the pinion on. It's 7 o'clock here right now at night. Everybody's gone. I'm tired, so I probably will do that in another video for you guys. And in that same video, we'll go ahead, set up the rear end setups and put front tires on them and finish them up. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that part 2. And check out viperscalerace.com. Check out Facebook. Also check out SCDRL. It's our new proxy drag racing league. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. See ya.